Well, hey everyone, it is Ellen, and I always love having people on for interviews. And today I have Adelina with me. And Adelina, I know that we don't know each other personally, but I feel like somewhere in the the spirit of everything that I know you, and I feel like there's just this light that radiates and this presence with you. And I just wanted to bring you on so that people can hear what it is that you do and all of that. And so, can you just share a little bit about yourself and your journey, and we'll dive right into this wonderful river.
Thank you so much. I do feel the same resonance. Like I've known you for a long time, even though we've only exchanged messages in the Instagram DMs. So cliche
Yes.
nowadays in
Yeah,
2024.
exactly.
I swear some of my like closest friends are now from these kinds of spaces. Yes, I always love this question, and often I'm also like, talk about myself in that way. It's so interesting. Um, and I really feel at the heart of it all, I'm a student. I really feel that I am a student on this path of life, learning and growing and discovering more and more about myself, about my habits, about my patterns, and just ways of being a better person, a better human, a better partner, a better mother on this planet. So first and foremost, I really see myself as like a forever growing, forever learning student.
Mhm.
I'm so passionate about plant medicine, specifically the path of ayahuasca that I've been on since 2017, and I've been a student of this magical plant, and also the Shipibo lineage. I'm very passionate about the Shipibo lineage and the wisdom that is embedded in that lineage, and supporting people, really, really supporting people, not only in ceremonial settings and dieta settings, but also in integration. I feel that the plants are these exquisite teachers that open up the pathways and the doorways, but we are the ones that walk through it and make the
Yes.
changes. So I have a lot of passion around integration work and ancestral healing work. I come from a bloodline with a lot of trauma, a lot of addiction, and sexual trauma, a lot of heroin, and I think that from these wounds that I experience, I think that I have a deep knowing that in
Mm.
our deepest traumas, in our deepest wounds, we have the greatest opportunities for healing and impact and inspiration. So I feel very inspired by the stories. It's 11:11, my time right now.
I
So
just looked at that too. Okay.
11:11. My daughter was actually born on 11:11.
Are you serious?
Yes, a little
Oh my gosh.
11:11 Scorpio star seed. True fashions, both of her great grandfathers died while in the womb, and one was born on the 11th month, and one was born on the 11th day. And I feel like, in true scorpionic death fashion,
Yes,
she like took their birthdays, and she's like,
totally.
"I'm fearless of death. I will take their birthdays and
That is
become
beautiful. That's
incarnated on 11/11." So
yes.
yes, yeah, I recently became a mom a couple years ago. My
Yes.
daughter just turned 2, and this has been the greatest and deepest plant medicine ceremony of my life, the deepest initiation I think I've ever experienced.
Mm.
And so I feel just really grateful. I feel very humbled. I feel especially motherhood, more than anything, motherhood has humbled me to the core and to the ground. Many times with my forehead and hands to the earth in prayer,
Mm.
just because it really reflects back to you all the work that's yet to be done and that gets to be done, and all that we say we want. I feel like so many of us show up in these ceremonies and these gatherings, and we're like, let's do these things and these vision boards and intentions, but then
Oh
it's like,
yes.
but how are we really showing up? Like, who
Oh
are we
yes.
behind these screens? And who are we in real life in relation to our partnerships and our intimate
Mm.
relationships where
Mm.
all of our traumas and dramas come up? And how are we as a parent to our children when they're reflecting back all of our wounds and the ways in which we're not in alignment with love? And so these past couple of years, especially dieting Noyarao, mostly, it's the plant that I've been very deeply in apprenticeship with. It's been a lot of illumination on where I'm not in alignment with truth and love. And in that, helping other people to also get very honest and real. I'm very big on realness and
Yes.
rawness because
Yes.
we're all human and we're all walking this earth trying to figure it out. So that's just a little bit, tiny little
That's
bit
just,
about
that's
me.
just a tiny little bit about you. But I can only imagine that to get where you are right now, your own journey in itself to get to plant medicine, your own journey coming through was quite interesting to get where you are now. So, can you share a little bit of your backstory? Why plant medicine? Why did you end up going there? I mean, there's so many different modalities, so many different things we can do. I mean, my God, it's a plethora of stuff. But sometimes we have this path where we're taking different ways of doing things. And so just
Yes.
talk to me, share your story.
I love what you're sharing. And yes, there's 100 modalities. And I actually was pre-med and going to go to medical school after I graduated undergrad. And I decided to go to massage school and study with a shaman instead, which was my parents were like, what? So, I started college in like 10th grade and in high school. And I just felt that there was another way after interning at hospitals, and I was working specifically, I was very interested in working with children who had cancer.
Mm.
And I just spent a lot of time in hospitals and hospital settings. And I love the hospital settings. And I think that there's a lot of beauty that happens and miracles that happen with Western medicine. But it just felt like spirit was like, there's like another way. And so I started apprenticing with a beautiful shaman that did not work with plant medicines, but I feel like she gifted me a lot of foundational work, and I apprenticed with her for almost 4 years. And she just gifted me so much foundational work with energy and soul retrieval work and just learning how energies work, learning how trauma manifests in the body in terms of physical sickness or emotional sickness, right? Because I think a lot of our Western society focuses on physical sickness, but
Yes.
I think we have more emotional sickness in this
Mm.
culture than
Mhm,
anything else, in emotional dysregulation, and that leads to physical sickness.
mhm.
Um, and so all of that was taking place. And my brother, I have a lot of heroin addiction in my bloodline, a lot, multi-generational heroin addiction, and all other kinds of addictions. But addiction runs rampant in my family. And at the time, I was trying to look for a cure for my brother. And I was like, I heard about this plant called ayahuasca. So I'm going to go to Peru. And obviously, Spirit was like, I wanted to be a doctor, but I had no idea that I was going to be like plant medicine doctor.
Right,
You
right.
know?
Right, sure, sure. Oh my God.
And then my life changed. I had this first ceremony, and very quickly, the plants, specifically ayahuasca, was like, "You found me. Well done. Like I've been waiting for you."
Mm.
And you're not just here for your family, you're here for you, and through your healing journey and your changing of the patterns, like it will ripple out. And if they want to come to me, they can. But really, like, think like, to give gratitude to my family, to give gratitude to my family dynamics, and to give gratitude to everything that has happened that led me onto my path. And so often I think there can be a pattern or a habit to really like shame or blame our bloodlines for our
I've been there.
inadequacies.
Yes, I've been there.
And our toxic ways of being, living, thinking, feeling, all of these things. But I really learned in that moment that, like, if it wasn't for my bloodline, if it wasn't for my family, like there's no way I would be so deep on this path. And so it was really because of my bloodline that initiated this open door to ayahuasca. And then I attempted several times to like go a different route, and ayahuasca found me all over the world, even in places that you would never expect. I traveled to Southeast Asia thinking like I'm gonna go a different route,
Oh,
and she
yes.
found me there. And then she took me deeper somehow in countries that she shouldn't have been in, supposedly, right? Um, and then it just continued. I really fell in love with the pathway of the plants. The plants, I felt like I was finally understood, like everything made
Mm,
sense.
mhm.
Like all of my gifts that were given to me had a place and a space to be expressed fully. And also it was very challenging. It's been a very deep journey. I think that the plant medicine path, especially when you're deep in apprenticeship and assisting and supporting and walking that path, it's not for the faint of the heart, and it's a very humbling path. And as much as there's like a lot of bells and whistles around the shaman's path nowadays, when you're actually walking it, it's very hard, it's very challenging, it's very humbling, and there's no rock unturned, in your own personal way, so that you can be a maestra, in holding spaces that you're in complete alignment. And so it's been a lot of purification of myself, this path. And she's just taken me deeper. She took me into the jungles of Peru, and now I support Aya healing retreats and support multiple, 4 dietas a year at the moment, online and in person. And then I found Noya Rao. And then really the path
Oh,
changed.
Noya Rao. Oh my gosh, I remember Noya Rao. I had an encounter with her during one of my ayahuasca ceremonies, and I had never seen such the love and the light that was coming was so, oh my gosh, it was so penetrating. It uncovered everything. I was like laid bare, and I mean,
Mm,
all the plant medicines when I was there seemed to do that. I was always laid bare, but that one, there was something with Noya Rao. And I remember thinking, I got to do a dieta with Noya Rao, but then I got a little afraid. And I was like, well, I don't know if I could do this fully, because there was such a laying bare of everything. Like, you're all out there. You're out
oh
there
yeah.
for everything, that is present to heal, to cleanse, to transform, a lot of reforming, even just reshaping thinking and all of that. I mean, that's just like you said, it's scary. And I'm
Yeah.
appreciative that you're actually saying this, because I think this is where I'm kind of heading in this interview a little bit, is to kind of change the conversation around, because there's a big rise right now in shamanism, and there's a big rise right now in plant medicine. It is. Everybody's like, let's go down to do plant medicine. Let's go. And I'm thinking, I had to wait. I didn't know anything about plant medicine, but I had to wait till ayahuasca called me. Because
Yeah.
had I gone before I was supposed to, I think it would have not gone as well as it did, even though it was craziness. You know what I mean? I had to wait. And then she began to call, and there were some spots open. I mean, that type of stuff just doesn't just happen. So
Yes.
talk to me a little bit just about, because you have an incredible respect and honoring, as you said at the beginning, of the Shipibo people with them, but also just with shamanism and that whole process and the journey. So can you share about
Yeah.
this? Because it's sacred. It's something very, very
Super
sacred.
sacred. I love this conversation so much already because I think that can feel sometimes that it's getting lost in so much of this rise, and it's almost like a revolution that's taking place, which is necessary, right? The plants are available and they're saying, like, let's heal together as a collective and let's wake up. Let's wake up together, which is why we're seeing this. And so many people are yearning to awaken their hearts, and they're yearning for deep connection and intimacy and love, really, and truth and healing, right?
Mhm.
We're yearning for something new. And the plants gift us that. And I also think that there's an incredible depth to plant medicine, especially when we're looking at plants. For me, I'm very specifically, I work with the lineage of the Shipibo people and ayahuasca. So I know some facilitators work with several different plants, but for me, I have decided and I have been shown that I just need to walk the path, of the Shipibo studies, working specifically with the Shipibo plants and ayahuasca. And for me, there's like a lifetime of study within that for me. And what I have found by deepening this path is how much this path requires of you, especially when it comes to like serving plant medicines, because this is no joke and it requires decades of apprenticeship and training. And I think we've come into a culture now with weekend immersions and weekend certificates. Like, this is not something to take lightly. And my personal thought and personal concepts around this is like there needs to be like a 10 to 20-year deep apprenticeship, at least 10 years before you're like serving plant medicine. I just think that to gather the skill sets and the ikaros and the understandings and to build the relationship with the plants, and also clear out all of your own junk first before you're
Yes.
serving,
Yes.
before you're holding space for others. Like, this is essential. And so when it comes to, there's two layers to this question. The first layer for me is serving plant medicine and walking the path of like a shaman or a maestro or maestra. These are very highly respected and honored terms. These are not just names that you,
Mhm.
you name yourself with. They're names that are given to you, gifted to you, and you're initiated into. At least that's my thoughts. I don't know if we can really call ourselves these kinds of things rather than being initiated into these things. And so I think there is a level of respect and also a level of deep study that is required before serving. And when I say that and speak into that, it's like when people are looking for places to go drink plant medicine, pay attention,
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
pay attention because not
Yes.
everybody has the depth of wisdom and study and knowledge of how to hold these spaces safely.
I
Um,
agree. I agree. You know, it's interesting you said that because I was on an interview with someone else last year, and I said, you're because people are just like, wow, you're paying to go to this plant medicine thing. And and they were just like, I can't believe you're paying this money to go there. And I said, you're not understanding. I said, first off, I've researched the place, but what I'm actually paying for, if you call it that, which I hate this type of transactional language, is for the journey of the shaman.
mhm.
It's the journey of the shaman that we're getting.
Yes,
We're getting the depth that they go to, the depths of their
100%.
transformation that they're going to. And that's why it requires such an honoring. It is so sacred. It is not something you just say, hey, yeah, I'm just going down there. We're going to have a trip and I'm going to come out the other side and I'm going to be healed like that. And in fact, I'm going to take a 6 weeks certification and I'm going to be done. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, that's just bullshit because the reality is it is a journey. It is a journey. And I think oh my gosh, I just love what you're saying because this has been my thing with shamanism and this has been my thing with plant medicine and just all these different spiritualities, the rise, because we are rising, right? We're rising in our consciousness.
Yeah.
The religious structures that have bound people and constrained people,
Mhm.
nobody wants that anymore. We're returning back to our own autonomy. We're realizing we're spiritual people. But in all of that, in every space of that, there's a call to the sacredness of the journey. There's a call to the altars of remembrance that we build every day around the earth and around
Mhm.
the plants and around the shamans and around the lineages and the histories and the legacies that are being left. I mean, that right there, you can't get in 6 weeks. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. It's not going to come with a certificate. You can call yourself a shaman all you want, but the reality is it tests its time. It does. The time will test
Yes,
its time.
it really does, and I feel so honored to sit at the altar of the Shipibo people again and again and again, and now to support, it was a dream come true, now I'm supporting them. It was always, something I had shared with my first ayahuasca teacher. I was like, I know I'm supposed to go to the jungle, and I just have this knowing that I'll be sitting at these altars supporting and being an advocate and just really honoring these lineages, these ancient lineages for the medicine that they carry and also their humanness, right? Because they're humans
Oh,
too.
totally.
Their
Yeah.
humanness that they carry. And I think we get to be very mindful. I think there gets to be a mindfulness in amidst this rise in this revolution of like continuing to return to the indigenous cultures, continuing to honor the indigenous cultures, but also honoring that the indigenous cultures are sharing with the Westerners for a reason because now we're building bridges. And so there are these initiations that are taking place and these apprenticeships that are taking place. And there are Westerners serving plant medicines that are meant to be serving plant medicines, and I think we're building these beautiful bridges because the indigenous people cannot be everywhere all at once. And this medicine wants to travel. This medicine has a spirit and it wants to travel. Just even Noyaral, we've been supporting online dieta since 2020. And we just completed our ninth online dieta, and Noyaral's been traveling to China and Australia and South Africa and the US and Europe. These plants want to travel right now, and we're here as conduits. But I think it's important that we continue to maintain this bridge as Westerners, where we are honoring the Indigenous, working alongside the Indigenous, also respecting the medicine and serving these medicines in reverence, in reverence, in grace, while also allowing the medicines to reveal to us our own medicines and our own shamanic nature, because I think we have all of us, each and every one of us has these shamanic natures. We
Mhm.
are shamanic in nature. We are of the earth. And so I think we very much all have shamanic gifts and tools and songs and prayers. And so, how can we allow this dance to continue in a really beautiful and harmonious way where we're all honoring, respecting, loving, supporting, with the plants sort of guiding and leading us, along the way. And so I think this is one part of your question. And the other part is really acknowledging the importance of preparation and integration for these kinds of work.
Yes,
Because
yes.
it's not just going, to a ceremony or going down to the jungle just on a whim, but rather like actually preparing, for our in-person plant medicine dietas, as well as our ayahuasca ceremonies and things like there's weeks of preparation and there's weeks of post dieta or post integration. And I think that this part is just as important, like how we prepare to meet the plants and how we integrate our experience with the plants is really going to determine the depth of our experiences with the plants and also the depth upon which those changes that we see possible for us in ceremonies
Mm,
actually manifest, take form, and become embodied in our life, which is why we're going in the first place, to become a better person. As my teacher, Maestro Don Miguel, always says, we're working with the plants to become better people. But it's up to us to see these opportunities and the gifts and the teachings that the plants give us, right? They're offering their essence and their heart and their soul and their spirit and their teachings and their informations and their initiations. They offer us all of these things. And then our offering back is saying, I say yes to this, and I'm going to lead my life now in this way because that offering is going to gift the world and make the world a better place, make our families a better place, make our mothering, our fathering, our loving to our partners. All of this is going to become in a better way, in a more aligned, mature, anchored, rooted, heart opening way. And that path is not always easy.
no, no, and
Like
I
to
was
make
gonna
these
ask you.
changes is not easy.
Yes, yes, exactly. I'm gonna ask you a little bit about some yeses that you've had to say yes to. What
Yeah.
have you, and whatever you're comfortable sharing, um, what have you had to say yes to? What's been so transformative for you in this?
Yeah. For me, I'm being actually asked to say that I've gotten to say yes too.
Okay, all
Like,
right.
yeah,
Yes.
like I've had to say yes in the sense of spirit being like, if this doesn't take place, like your deepening on this path of plant medicine can't really happen, or it's going to take longer. I once heard a maestra say, the plants are there, they're there to support you, but the longer that you don't want to heal your wounds, the longer the path is going to take. And it really impacted me because I feel like I've had to say yes of looking at myself, of really facing my wounds, my habits, my patterns, my reactivities, my loops, my cycles. I've had to say yes to doing really deep work around these aspects of self that have not been alignment and love. And this continues. It's not like it's
Sure.
like
Sure.
stopped, right? If
Yeah.
anything, it's just become more apparent, especially in motherhood and having a family dynamic now. It's become even more apparent. Like, so I've really had to say yes to doing my healing work all the way through. Um, I've had to say yes to this path of the plants, which has been humbling because there's been many times where I'm like, maybe we just don't do this anymore. Like, I think I'm good. Like, I don't think this
Oh,
is my path. And I've tried a million times to walk away, and the plants are like, there is not really much else for you here, love. Like, just
right.
keep saying yes. And a lot of times when I often will not say yes, it's because I'm afraid of like the next place I've got to go. Um, One thing I would say I got to say yes to was motherhood, because it wasn't something that I was necessarily planning at the time. I was planning to go into the jungle for 6 months, and I was in a dieta. And during that dieta, I thought I was getting period cramps. I was with Noyerao, and I had all these visions with Noyerao. And right after it, my grandfather started to die, and a positive pregnancy test. And I feel like this was a very awakening moment to me because Noyerao had me write after my dieta on a piece of paper and say, will you trust everything that comes next? And I wrote in capital letters, yes. Speaking of yes, I wrote, yes, I trust everything that comes next. Yes.
Oh,
And 4 days later, motherhood, you know?
wow.
And I think this is the power of trusting everything that comes next. Often we make our prayers and we set these intentions, and then the universe provides us with these things right after it. And it's like, oh, I didn't ask for that. Oh, that's not not what I meant.
Oh,
And it's
right,
like, but
right,
it
yes. Can I go back? Can I re-ask? I think maybe we got the lines crossed somewhere. Can we do that differently?
wait, I didn't want that, but I know I need that.
Oh, yeah, right.
So I've had to say yes to a
Yeah.
lot of things that I've needed for my growth and evolution and maturity. Walking this plant medicine path, I feel like really illuminates, especially Noyera. Like I love what you said. I'm a little scared because Noyera is this beautiful grand tree of light, right? This tree of transformation, this tree of healing. It's been known to really shine a light on all that isn't love and
Oh,
truth. And that
yes.
is not easy work, that is very triggering work and can be very hard work. So as much as it's a tree of light, it also is a tree of shining everything that's not light. And in that we get to like face ourselves. And I think that on this path, I've had to say yes to facing myself again and again and again and again and again, and being very honest about where I still have resistance to love, giving it and receiving it. And yeah, this has been massive for me. Like so illuminating in every sense of the word. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes, the message of self-love, Adelina. It's the thing, isn't it? It's the thing that's going out, the message of love. That's what will heal the planet. And we all know that. I know it sometimes a lot here, probably more
And
than
we want it so
yeah,
bad. We
I
want
know.
it so bad.
Exactly. We want it, but then it's just like, oh gosh, I got to get rid of all the barriers to love.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that was part of my journey down in the ayahuasca foundation when I was there, was I was having to remove these barriers to love that I didn't even know were there. I
Mhm.
honestly had no idea. And when they began to be removed, the Noya Rao is just a fantastic, fantastic illuminator of everything wrong in my life. She, as the world began to open up, it wasn't to hurt me. And I think this is the thing, because people would say, well, that must have been really painful, like why'd you put yourself through that? Yes, it was painful in the moment, and yes, it was painful to realize, oh gosh, I can be really selfish, oh gosh, like, I can be a lot of things here that are blocking love. But the point was to show all that to me so that I could love it and embrace it and
Mhm.
heal it and bring it back in and say, you know what, it's okay, Ellen. And then we just keep moving forward
Yes.
with it. And I'm going to ask you to share a little bit just about like the healing process that can come with plants, because they're not there to kill us, yet they're there to kill us in some ways. So share a little bit about this healing process for people, because people are, it's scary.
Yeah, and I love that you bring this element in because I find that there's an intimidation with the plant medicine
Mm.
sometimes, and a fear, and I often find that the fear is not so much of the plants, but it's actually a fear of meeting oneself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and and finally being able to see, and we can feel that whether we know it or not on a subconscious level. We can feel that, like, oh, I'm gonna die here, like I am, like parts of me are going to die here and parts of me are going to be reborn here. And what a blessing that we can finally let go of all of these shackles and weights and restrictions and constrictions around our heart space that has really been preventing us and holding us back from living in alignment with the life that we're visioning, so to speak, or the life that we're dreaming of, or the life that we're yearning for. A lot of times when I hear people say, well, my intention is this, and I want to open this, and I yearn for this, and I want that. It's like, oh, okay, yes. And most likely you're going to be shown everything that's in the way of
I
that.
know that. Exactly.
So, like, I really prepare people when I do preparation sessions for these kinds of spaces of like, let's look at your intentions and then let's get very open to the idea that you might be shown along the way what's in the way of that so that you can get comfortable with realizing that sometimes we're in our own way. And some of that's conditioning. A lot of us have been conditioned in certain ways through our culture, through society, through our parents, through our bloodline, intergenerational things that we're not even aware of. Womb conditioning that happened when we were in our grandmother's womb. Things like this. Um, and so we have all this. We have all these sticky, icky things that we are unraveling and unwinding. But it's very important to know that we're going to like face ourselves. And this takes immense amounts of courage and a good amount of preparation, not only physically with like food,
Right.
food restrictions and things, but like mentally. Often when people ask, what can I do to prepare? I'm like, okay,
Mm,
meditation, yoga, mindfulness, getting a therapist or a coach or a mentor for months prior, like things like this that can really help create a solid foundation, nervous system regulation tools, things like this, so that when you're in ceremony and you come into those moments that are hard, you have tools that you can access to support your nervous system and to support levels of deep trust, because it requires an immense amount of trust in these ceremonies. Like, that is the one word that I often share with participants. And like, if you can't remember anything else, just remember the word trust and repeat it to yourself. Like, trust, 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 because a lot of us are reprogramming that. We're reprogramming love, and we're also reprogramming trust
mm,
in our bodies. We're reprogramming what it means, and what it means to feel safe in our bodies, what it means to feel safe in relation to others, what it means to feel safe in expression of our gifts. And a lot of that is immense amounts of trust and also immense amounts of self-love. And so when it comes to preparing for these spaces and then actually attending these kinds of spaces, preparation, it's so important that we are tending to these little aspects of our inner child that are afraid, but also I think another thing that's coming through is that we live in a very shame-based culture.
I was just going there. Yep. Hmm.
We live in a very shame-based culture,
Mm.
and we often can inherently think that we're bad, and so in that inherent thought that we are bad, then we often will avoid taking ownership or accountability for mistakes. And it's not from a place of like, maybe it can be deemed narcissistic, maybe, but I think it's more protection. Like, I'm so afraid to say that this part of me is not a good quality, or this part of me hurts me, or this part of me isn't, that this isn't a healthy way to react, because if I say that, then I'll go into these shame-based beliefs or behavior that maybe were really imposed upon me as a child. And then that inherent thinking of bad is so destructive and so intense that it can really demolish any sense of self-love and growth and evolution. And so I think sometimes when we're looking at culture in a whole, I think doing shame work and really reversing shame is essential in terms of integration from these plant medicine experiences, because we get to start turning the lens towards ourselves, saying it's okay, like I do this, I have this habit, I have this negative way of thinking, like, okay, once I can own it, then I can change it. But often the shame can get in the way of that process. Yeah, and shame is really taught. I believe that shame is really a taught experience. Yeah.
Explain a little bit more about that.
Just from having a daughter now and just really watching our language and how we're speaking to her and learning so much about conscious parenting and how to reduce shame based words and ways of speaking. I just have realized so much around shame, and I've been doing a lot of research around shame and different authors and books and things. And so much of our shame based beliefs started when we were really young. When our parents or grandparents, like, oh, you don't want to give me a kiss. Why don't you want to give me a kiss? Like, oh, you don't want to eat that. Why don't you want to eat that? Like, you're going to make me cry if you don't do that. Like, we don't even realize how much we're ashamed for who we are and how we are and how we feel we want to be in that moment until we're older. And a lot of this gets ingrained in our minds and our subconscious. And so I think that a lot of our shame happens very young. And then we also live in a shame-based culture, right? So
Yeah.
I think we are really working with this on a subcontext. So often when I'm working with clients or mentoring, my students and things like this, and supporting groups and integration from ayahuasca ceremonies, we're really looking at how can we not be ashamed of the habits that we do in our daily lives that aren't supporting us? Because when we can clear up the shame, we can own the habits and patterns that we do that are not in support of love and light and beauty and truth, whether that's patterns with our partner, patterns with ourselves, patterns with their children, patterns with their parents. Like, instead of feeling bad about them or feeling inherently like we're bad because we have them, once we can clear out the shame, love can come in. And then once we have love for the negative qualities or aspects or habits that we have, then we can start to ask the question of, what do I want now? What different decisions do I want to make? What kind of support do I need in changing these habits? In what ways is this not supportive for me? We can start asking real, honest questions that
Yeah.
provide solutions for change.
Yes.
And this is something that I see a lot when people come out of ayahuasca ceremonies. They have all these awarenesses, and then they have these layers of shame and guilt because maybe they've made mistakes, but we all have. Yeah, we all have made so many mistakes in our lives. And the more that we can just accept it and see it as like that's the best we did with the knowledge that we had at this time. What do we want to do now? Right? The plants gift us this opportunity. I feel like they come in and they're like, you have
Yes.
all like limitless life.
Yes.
Like, let's open some new doors and
Yeah.
let's get real with what hasn't allowed for these new doors to open so we can actually walk through as a new person. You
Mm,
know, we can actually walk into our lives and be embodied in a new way. Not to say we won't repeat old patterns because we will. Those
sure.
pathways are very ingrained and embedded and have been going on for a long time, maybe decades. And so we're just strengthening new parts of our brain and we're strengthening new parts of our nervous system and our emotional reactivity or responsiveness, you know? And
Mhm.
life is gifting us everything we need to grow. Every person, every experience, everything. If we just look right here where we are right now, we'll probably have all the teachers that we need, you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
to do it. And the plants are allies. They're actual allies that can help us release, you know, these old toxic energies of shame and guilt and self-hatred and self-criticism and self-judgment, all these things that really make us small and don't help us or support us to just acknowledge, accept, and then make changes. Yeah, that's
Yes.
what I mean by that. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, you did. You did. You know, it's funny. I was raised in a religious household, and I was raised in evangelical fundamentalism Christianity, and you know that had its own things with it. It had really good pieces to it, and there was a lot that I learned. But there was always this pride to. It's almost like it's like a false humility of how, you know, I'm a worm, you're nobody, God is everything, Jesus is everything, you're a nobody. And the message is you're a nobody. The message is that God is the best over here and you're no one. And when I was down in the Peru or back in Peru, I feel like I'm having like deja vu while I was in here, but we were in a cacao ceremony. And the thing that religion never taught me was how to love myself. And that doesn't mean that every church was that way or everybody in Christianity was that way. It just means what I was learned and taught was that God loved me and therefore then I could love myself.
Mm,
But there was never any emphasis on that. And I'm in this cacao ceremony, and it was the most incredible ceremony. I know you know about these, and I try to explain it online. I'm not even going to try. Other than this, that this I saw the plants come down. It was ayahuasca, and she just ripped open my chest in this ceremony, and this light shone through, and I began wailing. I was wailing.
mm,
And what was interesting was you were talking about shame, and like all the shame was coming up, and then like who I am as a woman, who I am, you know, even just being gay, who am I with all this stuff? Okay, all the stuff. And then the church was coming up, and then all this fear was coming up. Everything was just coming up in one moment.
yeah.
And I felt this penetrating love, and it got in there. I mean, it got in a way that I was not expecting, which continued the wailing. The ceremony ends, people are leaving. I can't get up off the floor. I'm just there and I'm basking in this love. And I
Mm,
remember saying, God, thank you for loving me. And what was fascinating in this whole moment was I heard the plant say, this is you loving you.
aw,
And I'm not saying that, you know, I'm not, this is not me coming against like God, you know, God can't
yeah,
love me or what, nothing like that. But it was this understanding, this was me loving me. I was giving myself permission to love me. I was giving myself permission to let myself off the hook
yeah,
in that moment. And it was so life altering. And I have never looked back from that. That doesn't mean I'm fully healed, doesn't mean I don't have, you know, stuff I deal with every day, because I do. But that was like such a profound door of opportunity for me to expand and explore all these other areas that I
mm,
didn't even know were needing to be there and that are needing to be cleansed. And that self love was incredible. I Wow. I mean, I saw like the inner child. I saw like, I saw Tom as a little girl, as a baby. I was like embracing all of it. I never, ever in my life, ever experienced that. Ever.
Wow. So profound, sister. And when you were saying I was wailing, I'm like the part of me inside was like,
Yeah, I
yeah.
know.
Those
Of
are like
course.
those are the moments. Those are the breakdowns, for the breakthroughs. It's a lot of us haven't allowed ourselves, to really like fully crack open like that. And for a lot of us, love hasn't been safe. So,
Sure.
we have so many protective mechanisms, and I feel like the plants like they just like chip away at those protective mechanisms one at a time. They have such an intelligence. Ayahuasca, for me, ayahuasca and Noyarao, they just carry such a deep intelligence. They just go in and they just know
Oh,
exactly where to go, what to illuminate, and when to illuminate. Like they know exactly when I'm ready and available to actually receive that piece so that I can do something with it. Not a moment sooner. And I
yes.
think this is where the intelligence of these plants will never be understood. And there's no possible way to ever understand the intelligence of these plants. And I think the Shipibo people specifically, they deeply believe in God, and they feel that the plants are an extension to God. And a lot of their ikaros, as I'm learning their ikaros and learning Shipibo, they sing a lot to God, God being this like energy of light.
Yeah.
And they often say it's like it's just a reflection. It's just a reflection. Like, who are we being every day?
Right.
How are we speaking in every day? How are we walking this earth every day in every single moment? And it's not from a place of self-criticism or self-judgment, but rather from a place of self-love and self-curiosity. Like, so much changes when we shift from like self-judgment to self-curiosity.
Yes. That sense of
So much
wonder.
shift.
Oh, that sense of wonder. There's a childlike wonder in that. It is a discovery. It's like an
Yes.
adventure to be like, oh, what more's in there? Because once you get past that, for me, it was getting past the fear and, all the other stuff that was coming up in that first ceremony. Once I started to get past that, then I was able to explore me. Then it was like, okay, I'm safe to explore me. It wasn't
Yes.
just like, is it safe to explore what the plants are bringing? Is it okay to explore me? Is it
Yeah.
safe to see what's there? Oh, I don't like that, but that's okay.
Yes.
Like I think it's
Yes.
going to be okay. So let's talk about integration because this is a piece for me that I believe is critical, is important, because you can just have an experience, but then we need to embody that experience. We can have an experience and it be just uprooted and gone in a matter of moments, or we can have this experience, let it penetrate, go right down into the very DNA and shift the cells and do all of that. So let's talk about integration because this
I
is
love
something that you do. I'm sorry.
it. I love it. I love it because it is so much like that. And I have seen and personally experienced, where there's these grand openings and huge experiences in ceremonies, otherworldly, right? And
Mhm.
then you get home
Oh yeah.
and it's like, what do I do now? Right. And all your old patterns start coming up and you're like, what was the point of all that work? And all
Mm.
your wounds start coming up. And sometimes it can seem like they're coming up more than they were there before.
Oh
It's
yes.
like, how is this happening more? And it's like, it's not happening more, honey. It's just that now you're really hyper aware of it.
That's it. That's it. Oh my God.
It's like it was always there this much. Now it's so when people sometimes, participants will reach out uh, after dietas or after ceremonies and be like, my life is falling apart, I think, and it's like, it might be, let's talk about it. Let's have some integration sessions. And it's like, is it falling apart or is it falling together? Because a lot of times we think things are falling apart, but they're falling apart so that everything can fall together. Or you'll have experiences where you get home and all of a sudden you and your partner are like really at it. And it was like you went to heal wounds with your relationship. But what I have seen in my personal experience, it's like these things were already there, but now you have such awareness and your body like won't let you do the same things, right? So
Oh,
it's like you can't go back to where you were, and you can try, but it starts to create a lot of suffering and a
mm,
lot of pain and a
mm.
lot of hardship because your body is like, I literally can't act like that anymore. I can't think like that anymore. And if you try to, it feels really intense because it's no longer in alignment. And the plants just did so much work to clear
Mhm.
it all out, to clean it
Mhm.
all out. And also, some center, not everyone has very integrative experiences. Some people do come home unintegrated, and that is why integration is so essential. So I sometimes it's because the center is not really clean with the energies, or sometimes there's ceremonies that are held that are not held in right alignment. I won't go too into that stuff, but that can happen. And then there is really, more damage done than good. So I think when it comes to just sitting with medicine, I'll just speak this before any more integration work. It's like make sure that the place that you're going to is really trauma informed, has decades long of training, in terms of the maestra or the maestro. There's a team supporting, there's facilitators, there's integration processes afterwards, there's preparation processes beforehand, so that you're held from the very beginning till weeks after. And
Yes.
I think that unless a facility or a facilitator doesn't, if they don't have that structure, I would just be hyper aware of like, why is that structure not in place? Because plant medicine is a very serious experience, and it's not for everyone. This is also another thing. It's
Yeah,
not
that
for,
is true. Yes.
it's totally not for everyone. That's why there is usually a questionnaire, a interview, a rigorous kind of like process of making sure that you're a right fit for this particular plant medicine. So I would just, I'm like putting that out there to really be mindful of anyone who's watching this. If you're feeling the call to ayahuasca, like be mindful of where you're going to sit. And I
Yes.
have plenty of references of where you can sit that I trust. And in terms of integration, it's like set yourself up ahead of time. If you're coming
Mhm.
home from a process like this, maybe you have a therapist or a mentor, a healer that you started with beforehand. And when you come home, set yourself up for multiple months of support
Yes.
afterwards. I really believe in this. I think that having multiple months of support afterwards is really essential because there's so much that happens in the coming months, years even. There's things I'm integrating still from my very first ever plant medicine ceremony in 2017, my first dieta in 2019. So I think, when it comes to, we have these expansive experiences, and then we get to be supported in knowing how to integrate, how to embody, because we can receive a lot of information in ceremonies and it's titrated. Like we can only do so much at a time.
Yes.
And so we might only be able to work on one or two of those things. And then we have a list of those other things in the corner. Like, okay, I'm going to get to these things, but let me integrate this. Let my nervous system become regulated around this. Let me change one thing first consistently and have
Mm.
it become a new part of my life. And then I'll take another piece and then I'll integrate and change that piece and have it come consistently a part of my life. And then we have our list and we're slowly taking things down from that list. So I think slow, like integration is slow. It's days, weeks, months, years after plant medicine that we are slowly making these changes in our lives. So to not have these huge expectations that this one journey is going to like change everything that you want
What do
because
you mean? I'm completely I'm perfectly
you
fine
know
now. We have oh
so
no, no, not at all.
integration is a process and I
Yeah, I
think
was gonna ask
for
you what is
yeah.
the like what do you do? Like if somebody's saying, well, I don't even know what integration is, what is it? What does
Yeah.
it look like?
I feel like for me, integration is an opportunity and a practice. Just I think integration is a practice that you are committed to. Like I'm committed to every day integrating the teachings, the lessons, the awarenesses that were gifted to me in this plant medicine ceremony. So I think that for me is what integration is. Is taking the teachings, taking the lessons, taking the new awarenesses, and then asking yourself, what changes do I want to make in my life with all this new knowledge, with
Mm,
all this new healing? And then what kind of support do I need to be able to be accountable to making these changes? Because sometimes we can't do that all by ourselves. And what little micro movements, micro shifts and changes can I make every day to move towards that more integrated self, self as we call it, the more whole self, the more peaceful self, the more rooted self, the more grounded in love self that we're all yearning so much to get to. And
mm,
so I think it's really after these plant medicine experiences is doing a lot of journaling and and really writing a list. I often say, write a homework list to yourself from the plants. Like, what did the plants show you? What did your journey show you? What did you learn about yourself? What are things that you see aren't healthy that you want to change? And to write it down before you leave the jungle, before you leave your retreat center, and you bring it home. It's like a homework list from ayahuasca, homework list from Noyadal, and you bring it home. And then I often say, what can I do right now? What are one or two things I can take off this list and really work on that are the most important, that are going to bring big changes to my life that I know that are not healthy? And who can I lean on for support?
Mhm.
Like, what group spaces can I put myself in? If you can't afford one-to-one work, what group spaces can you put yourself in? You know, what one-to-one spaces can you put yourself in that really can help facilitate this embodiment practice of changing in the ways that you saw illuminated to you, you know,
Yes.
in the jungle or in the ceremony. So it's slow though. It's so slow. It's like we're making these changes very slow, because when we try to make changes too fast, too much too fast, the chances of us actually maintaining them consistently, it lessens. But when we do things more slowly over a long period of time with a lot of self-love, then those changes actually start to take form and take shape in our life, because we're doing it at a pace that we can actually manage, knowing that we're not going to be perfect every day, but at least we're showing up consistently a little bit every single day in that direction that we say we want to go. And eventually we'll get to that goal of some kind, if there is a goal, you know. Healing is so cyclical. I don't know if there's
I
ever.
know, I don't even know if there is a goal, but, um, I know that I have a few more questions I'm gonna ask you. So you mentioned that it's, like, really important that you research a center of where you're going. So then I
Yeah.
would have to say that it's probably equally important to research who you're doing integration with.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
what should you look
Yeah.
for an integration guide to help you?
Yeah. I think for me, um, like an integration guide is someone that has deep experience with the plant that you were just in ceremony with. So yeah, I recommend that you find someone that has lots of ceremonies with that particular plant, so that they know the kinds of things that are coming up in those ceremonies. They have an understanding of how that plant spirit works, what it reveals, how it reveals it, how it affects your nervous system, how it's like what its capacity is to bring up old traumas and things like this. So an understanding of the plant spirit itself and a lot of experience personally with that plant itself, I think is a very important aspect. The second aspect is having someone that not only has experience with the plant, but also is very trauma informed, meaning that they have education around trauma. They've done extensive training around how to facilitate an integration session like that. Like, they know what kind of questions to ask. They can take you through somatic work, specifically for me, is very helpful. It's something I've been training in for years and years, of how to take you through somatic processes to help uh, regulate your nervous system while in the process of understanding what's taken place. So someone that's very trauma informed, that has the skill sets and the sensitivity and the attunement for the specific questions and for the specific practices and exercises that will actually support your integration rather than re-traumatize or work against what you're trying to do. So I think it's kind of a two-part, having someone that has a lot of experience and also has the education, the psychosomatic education and the trauma informed education to be able to facilitate, you know, what's going to come up, especially plants like ayahuasca. There's so much trauma that resurfaces in ayahuasca. And to be able to really help integrate those experiences, there needs to be a very deep understanding of how trauma lived in the body and ways to work with that trauma so to not re-traumatize or dysregulate the nervous system any further. So I think this is very important. Yeah, and
Yes,
these two aspects sort of get married a little bit. And so interview your, you know, ask questions, get curious. And if someone's not open to answering your questions of like, what kind of work do you do? And, you know, what kind of education do you have? What kind of experience? Then that might be a red flag. Like, if, you know, and if they don't have it on their website, maybe they don't have personally time to do that. But maybe they can refer you to a place that has all their credentials, you know, and say, look up everything, you know, that I have, and let me know how that feels in your body. Same thing with the center. If you reach out to a center and they're not open to answer your questions of how they hold the space and what the ceremonies look like, that's also a red flag, because we want people to feel very safe in the ceremony settings as well as the integration settings. And so, the willingness to answer questions that provide safety and a knowingness of safety, I think are very essential. So do your research. Also ask people. I
Sure.
have lots of people,
Sure.
I have a lot of people that are referred to me that have worked with me. So, ask your communities of like if they know of anyone, because oftentimes you'll be gifted someone that either they've worked with or someone else has worked with. And normally that's really powerful, because sometimes that can be more powerful than like going and doing a Google search online. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you call yourself an integration guide. So
Yeah.
what can people expect from a session with you? What I know that you talked a little bit, you've got breath work, you do dance, you do singing, there's a definitely a creative way of healing that you bring.
Mhm.
What can people expect?
Yeah.
You.
So my integration sessions really focus around the soma, the body, and integrating everything that takes place in these ceremonies through the body. I work a lot with somatic experiencing, which is a beautiful modality from Dr. Peter Levine. I also work a lot with movement in the body, so bringing it down and in. I work a lot with the inner child and supporting people and really reparenting themselves in these integration sessions. And then also embodiment practices. So, the session may look like us doing breath work. It depends. Everybody needs something different. And it depends on how many sessions we have together, because then I'll create a plan depending on that. We might do a lot of, asking the body rather than asking the mind, and doing journeys into the body to understand what's taking place there on a nervous system level. And from that, understanding what kind of practices we can integrate. So it's not just in the session. I also give a lot of embodiment practices in between sessions, because we can get off these sessions and then
Sure.
not do anything with it. Right. And so it's the same situation.
Right.
So a lot of my integration sessions are usually longer term, like 2 to 3 months, and then I have containers that also offer support in between sessions via Telegram or WhatsApp, so that people can actually be working on things as they arise in between sessions. And then there's embodiment practices,
Mm,
journaling exercises, meditation exercises, movement practices that I personally craft for each participant, or I have, a library of things that I'll share with people. Journaling exercises that are supportive, just anything that can really help to regulate the nervous system. Because I find that after these experiences, nervous system regulation is key. And then often people are asking, well, what's next? And so this is where the practices come in. We
yes.
do the somatic work, we do the reparenting work, we do the inner child work, we retrain the nervous system together, we do soul retrieval work, shamanic work in this sense. And then in between sessions, it's like, what can you do? What kind of practices can you partake in? And how can you become incredibly aware of who you're being and how you're responding or how you're reacting. And so a lot of it is awareness. So much of the integration practice is awareness, and then gifting tools to make the changes. So, and that's why I often say, like, I don't believe that like one integration session is usually going to be enough for these big experiences. I think like really investing, and setting yourself up to be held for a concrete amount of time, so that you can really work through all the different layers that start to surface, for the months following after, and know that it's a slow process. And I also gift a lot of tools. I think having tools, we're often looking for that as humans. Like, how can I do this? How can I make this change in my life?
Right.
Um, yeah. And so those are often crafted, for each person within each session. Yeah, depending on what each person needs. Everything's very individual, in that space, unless it's a group setting. And then when we are in group integration sessions, what I find is we're all dealing with the same thing.
We are. Yes. Yes.
I love group work,
Yes.
because it's like one
Yes.
person asks a question and everybody gets something from it. And then another
Absolutely.
person asks a question, everybody gets something
Mhm,
from it.
mhm.
And we're all like learning and growing and evolving together. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
is it for all ages? Like the integration sessions, I mean, what if somebody was 80? Can they come and do the integration sessions with you?
Yeah, if it and, I have my the work that I do with plant medicine, ayahuasca and integration, and then I also have work that I do with people that don't work with plant medicine at all. And
Okay.
I've had clients all the way from 20 to 70,
That's
and
fantastic. Oh, I love
yeah, it's
it.
amazing. It's amazing. And I think that at any age we can do healing work. And I love this work because just as much as we're all helping each other to heal. We're all like walking each other home.
Mm.
So, whenever anyone comes into my field and they decide to do work with me, it's like usually a perfect match. And I've done enough growth and evolution within myself to be able to support them with whatever's coming up. And I think that it's always that way. And at the same time, most of the time my clients are reflecting back to me areas that I can grow and evolve. And I'm just like,
Exactly.
thank you. They might not know it. I might not like say it outright because that's not what the role is in that particular dynamic. But I also feel like we're all just here like helping and supporting each other. And just as much as I support others, I have so many mentors that I lean on for my integration from each of these dietas and ceremonies I come home from. So I think it's important to know that just as much as I support people with integration, every time I come home, I have my people that I lean on for integration because I think that it's that important that I'm also continually doing my healing work and learning and growing and yeah, removing the layers, working through the layers. So,
Oh
yeah,
my
it's
gosh,
for
I feel
any.
like I could speak to you for hours. You are just like a wealth of knowledge, but there's such joy. There's such a joy that radiates from you. It's visible. It's very, very visible that work has been done. You can see it in your eyes. I can see it in your countenance. Like work has been done, like very serious, intentional, motivated work has been done to better yourself and to come through it. Um,
Yeah,
and we're in that, like we're right now. I mean, so much of ancestral wounds, people are healing the ancestral wounds. I mean, the Mother Earth is wonderful because she's calling us into the place of reckoning with ourselves. Like,
it is.
well,
We
and
are
it's
in
all,
a purification of self right now.
oh my God.
We are
Are we
pure
ever?
we are purifying ourselves right now in a really big way, and it's confronting and triggering in so many ways. And I think, yeah, when you speak to the joy, it's not always like that, of course, but also I think a lot of the joy, like I find more and more joy is happening within myself and in my life, the more and more that I can get real with myself. I think when we don't take ourselves too seriously, like the less
Yes,
serious we take ourselves, and the more that we're like, yeah, I do that. Yeah, let me look at that. Yes, I need to heal that. I just did that thing again.
right,
The more that we
right.
can just be real and honest with ourselves and not take it too seriously, then the more joy that we can find because we're not getting so reactive and we're not getting so defensive and um, pointing the fingers in the other direction and rather looking at ourselves from within. And I think that this brings a lot of joy because it gifts us freedom. And this purification portal is here to gift us all freedom, but it's requiring us to really look at ourselves. And that can be really uncomfortable if we're doing it in such a serious manner with a lot of shame and blame and guilt, rather than through a lens of like, I'm human, I love myself, let's change these things.
Yep, yep.
And let's just like walk this earth in a better way, and not take it all so seriously.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny you said that. I was just thinking of the last thing. When I was at the Ayahuasca Foundation, and there I was, and it was after ceremony, and I was always directed to never hang out with anybody. I was always directed to go back upstairs and be by myself. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go be by myself. And there was this one moment where I was just laying in the bed, reflecting on what had happened, coming down out of different things. And ayahuasca just began laughing, like, and it was the most beautiful laugh. I will never forget the laugh. Like, I was just like, and it was, I mean, she like appeared, and then there was like this laughter, but it was not a laughing at. It wasn't like, ha ha ha, I've got you where I want you. It was, ha ha ha, like, look at what's happening with you. Like it was like an invitation into the laugh. And I did. I started to laugh just on my bed by myself. And she and I were just laughing. And it was such a release. And then I turned into crying at the end because it was just like, oh right, I can laugh at myself. It's okay. It's okay. I can laugh with her. She can laugh with me. And it was just the understanding of like, it's okay, Ellen. Like that was what was being said. Like, it's okay. Yeah, that ceremony was maybe difficult and wasn't the best form that you could possibly think of, but it's okay. Like, let's laugh. Let's just laugh at this. And it did. It immediately broke some of the shame. It broke some of the heaviness or the seriousness. And
Yeah.
after that, I was just like, okay, I get you're fun too. You can be fun. There's a fun aspect to these plants in the midst of the sacred work.
Yes,
There's
yes.
there's a fun to it, and they're little tricksters every once in a while, and
Oh, yes.
yeah,
Oh, yes. My teacher, Don Miguel, my maestro, yeah, he works a lot with Chuichaki, and it's called the
oh
Trickster
my
of the
God.
Forest, and yeah, and he is hilarious, he's always smiling, always laughing, and he's really supported me in learning as well as motherhood and my partner and just all the plants, the path itself of just like how serious like, yes, the healing is serious, right?
Of
And
course.
yes, these wounds are deep, and yes, these traumas are so real, and yes,
Yes.
we get to do this work. We get to do this work, and sometimes we are bawling our eyes out. Sometimes we are humbled to the core to the ground. It's gut-wrenching at times, right? Like, all of
Yes.
this is true,
Yes.
and if we can do it with a smile, and we can laugh at it every now and then, it becomes a heck of a lot easier, you know, to do it. And in that there can be a lightness to it to where we can get out of the loops of depression and anxiety and fear, and we can go into the space of hope and infiniteness. And I think that there's a balance, of course. I really honor all the things. I've had my own fair share, and I work with a lot of beautiful humans with a lot of trauma, and you know it's beautiful. And we also can activate this. Sometimes I'll say to my clients, what brings you joy? Write a list of everything that brings you joy. And I want you to do one of those things on that list every single day for the next week, because we also get to be joyful in this process of healing. And we also get to have fun in this process of healing as
Yes.
well. Yeah. And so I think that it's important that we anchor into the beauty of joy, and do things that light us up, and do things that allow us to have fun, because yes, we can get very serious about this.
And it's like a returning, isn't it? It's a
Yeah.
returning back before everything happened. I feel
Yes.
like that's where, oh gosh, I feel chills on that one. I feel like the plants are and continuing to do in my life. And I keep getting the feeling I'm probably going to be going back down there. But anyway, um, that are, it's just like a bringing back
Mhm.
before it all went wrong. It's a returning to the remembrance of that space. And that's where some of my childhood wonders coming back, and the joy and
Yes.
smelling a rose, and the simplicity of that smell, and the beauty of it, looking at the sunshine when I'm walking, the beach, and I'm engaging it. Whereas before I had done, I just lived my life. I'd step on the rose, or I wouldn't even see the sun, all of that.
Yeah.
And it opened me up and returned me back to that place where, oh, look at the ant. It's wow, look at the uniqueness of the ant. Wow,
Yes,
look at this over here. And it's so childlike, but it's such a it's
it
not
is.
it's not childish. It's childlikeness. It's that
Yes,
returning back to the sense of wonder before it all went to
completely.
shit. And
Completely. Like, yes, yes, everything you're saying, I'm feeling my earth angel, my little Noyara earth angel, our daughter. And she does all that, she's 2, and this is the age where really wonder. And she does that. Mom, look at the clouds. Mom, let's dance. Mom, let's sing. Mom, come dance with me. She's always laughing. She's always smiling. She's always wanting to play. Come play with me. And for a long time, I was like, I don't know how to play. And I've had to like relearn how to play with her, and she's always wants to dance and sing and make a cow and beat on the drum and shake the rattles. And I'm like, this is what we're meant to be doing: dancing, singing, playing. This is
yes,
actually you know, we'll be walking, she'll be like, "Mom, look at this flower." You know, she's look at the birds in the sky. And it's like, you
Mm,
know, it's she's really supported me in remembering all of this. And I do feel like the plants are helping us to come back to this, to come
yes.
back to really the beauty of life. The beauty of life, the beauty way, you know, the beauty way of appreciation, gratitude, and love. And in that process, we're like unraveling all the things. So I feel like if we're unraveling with such intensity and there's no infusion of love and joy and celebration, that journey is going to be very tough.
Yeah.
And so I often encourage, you know, a lot of these joyful, fun practices alongside the healing. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This has been so fun.
So
And
beautiful.
it's just been such a beautiful connection. And I really want to say thank you for being here. I want to say thank you for just hopping on and taking this and saying, yeah, I'll do this. Well, well, it's been a real joy and a real honor. So where can people find you if they want to find you?
Yeah. So Instagram is my jam. I love it on there, and I just find myself being more there. So you can find me at Instagram. It's at Adelina M Vaughn is my handle. Also, if you are looking for like ayahuasca retreats and dietas, it is on there. You can reach out to me, send me a personal message there. That's where I post programs and retreats and all the things. But also, you can also go to ayahealingretreats.com and you'll see me as a facilitator there. And I run several of the in-person dietas and I run the online dietas. So if you're looking to, you know, experience an online dieta as like a stepping, like dipping your toe in the water, it's an amazing opportunity. We do diet no Noyadal. Noyadal comes right to you and you diet in your home. It's been an incredible experience for people in preparation for the jungle to understand what a dieta is, to do these processes without ayahuasca, without any psychedelic experience. And then I also run the women's retreat that happens in May, and I'll be there in December as well with Don Miguel. So yeah, you can go to that website and look at all of their incredible work they do. They have retreats all year. So I often send people that way because I trust them. I've been, you know,
Yeah.
supporting their retreats since 2020. And also, you know, personally, I went to a retreat in 2019. So I've experienced it on both ends, facilitating and participating. Yeah. And so you can find me on there on Instagram and just reach out that way. It's always, I answer all my messages personally. I love interacting with people on a really deep level. So yeah, it's a thing, something I really love to do.
Thank you, Adelina, for sharing your heart with us, sharing your
Thank you so
spirit,
much.
sharing your
Thank you.
soul. Yeah, it was a beautiful dance, is the way that I see it. It was a dance of invitation and welcome. And yeah, you never know. I might have you on again if I really want to hone in on something. So thank you for this time.
Thank you.